Like, look at these trees right here. I mean, these pine trees, they're all in excess of 100 feet tall. And, you know, when you're standing underneath them, it's incredible. You just have such a connection to, you know, the wilderness when you're just out, you know, out here in a real environment, you know, and you got your equipment with you and you have some time. It's like I just get so inspired. So usually what ends up happening is I stay gone too long, walk too far, you know, and yeah, I'll stay outside. I'll stay out in the woods all night long when I didn't plan on it. I tell the wife and kids, oh, I'll be back in a couple hours. And the next afternoon I come traipsing in. And they're like, what happened to a couple hours? And it's like, oh, well, I just, you know, kind of got interested in following a deer trail or something, you know? Or so, you know, always something interesting happens, or I find some absolutely spectacular place that I have to explore. And that's when I really get lost in it all. I take the time to explore. All these trails that you see out here, this trail that we're walking on right now. Sometimes you just have such a sense of seclusion and solitude in a place like this that you just want to settle in. You know, it's unlike anywhere else you can go. And the solstice that you feel in a place like this place right here. I just come here and I sit here and I'll sit in the quiet and listen to nature. Listen to blue jays in the trees, crows. But yeah, I take the time to take it all in. I observe, you know, I observe what's going on around me. It gives me a chance to think. And I usually come up with some really good stuff when I go and do that. You know, that's how I come up with ideas for the video episodes that I come up with. There's so many times I'll just go sit out in the woods and think about different subjects like burning wood bowls and stuff like that, and I'll come up with a really great idea of what to put in a video, and then I'll go make it. You know, I'll go make the video after that. So that's how I do what I do, you know, out here. I really do put a lot of thought in the things I need to be doing next when I'm out here. And it's so relaxing out here. It's just like I can spend days on end out here. It don't matter. I mean, as long as I got some food to eat and water to drink, I'm good. I sleep on the fly. Don't matter to me. Yeah, I flip a lot of people out in the woods because they'll start setting up their tents and their hammocks and their lean-to shelters and all that, getting their sleeping bags out, and I'll just lay down on top of a log. I'll find just a log laying down on its side in the woods. I'll crash out on top of that nice flat rock. They look at me like I'm nuts, but hey, I like it that way. I like it rough, and I take it rough. If anybody doesn't think so, I invite you to come camping with me sometime. I'll show you what I'm all about. I guarantee you I'm the real deal. I'll be the first one and the last one to tell you. No, I don't do frivolous things. I don't take chances. But what I'm trying to tell you folks is that, you know, I'm reasonably knowledgeable and I'm so confident and my own, my own techniques that, I just live like that when I'm out in the woods. Now, of course, I don't sleep on a log when it's raining, if it's inclement bad weather. Of course, nobody's going to do that, but on a nice starlit night, when the breeze is cool, I'll definitely sleep out under the stars, where a lot of people don't seem to want to do that. But that's how I like it. I like it rough. That's my character and my style. I was raised in the wilderness of Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and in the Center State, near Grayling, Gaylord, areas like that. Fred Bear Bow area, That's where I was born and raised. That's where I come from. So I just have that lifestyle bred into me because that's how, we lived. That's how my folks lived, how my grandparents lived there in Michigan at the time, in the early 70s. And my folks were bush people. And so I picked up the lifestyle and loved it so much, I still continue trying to live it, even though my wife and kids don't want to live that way. They like, my wife and kids like having the box store right up the road, so on and so forth. The box restaurant, and I'm okay with that. Hey, that's great too. You see, I buy technology. I use technology. It's a big part of my life. But the technology wouldn't be fun without the woods, and the woods would be less fun without the technology. So I get the best of both. I try to anyway. And that's what it's all about, living good. Even in a deep survival situation, to me, it's, just, living, camping and doing normal things, only it's, a situation that we can't control at that particular moment. So that's all a survival situation is. That's all it should be anyway. You should be living the same way you always live any other time, only in a survival situation, you're doing it because of conditions that are not in your control. And to have it any other way, it isn't really good, because then you're suggesting that you're living in some way that you don't normally live because you're in a survival situation, and that can place you at odds with everything that you do. So it's just not a good approach. And that's my opinion on that, and I think most of you will agree with me. So that's why I like just taking hikes out through the woods. We're just walking around. I'm just walking and talking and kind of sharing my philosophies with you. Stuff that I normally don't do in a video. But that's something that I realized from watching a lot of my older videos, is that sometimes I just don't put the philosophy and the logic behind it. I'll deliver a good video, but I don't support it with why I think it's good, where I got it from. Maybe compare just other things to figure, to give a good analogy of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to work on that in future videos. I'll try to add more commentary and more personal thought to the video. Keep the actual hands-on teaching and building stuff going, because that's really important too. To actually show how to make something is worth 10 descriptions. And so that's why in the majority of my videos, I'm always actually showing how to make something, and that's why I do that. It's because actually seeing it being done is really valuable. It's as valuable as hearing someone describe how to do it. You put both of those things together, and then you have a really good knowledge base to strike out on your own and develop your own technique of making the tool or using the skill or whatever the case may be. And that's what you should do. You should take someone else, something that someone teaches you, you should take that and elaborate on it and become skillful enough in doing it that you make it your own technique. You employ your own philosophies and your own needful prerogatives into how you approach having the tool or doing the skill or whatever it is you're doing. And that's how it becomes your own. It becomes your skill. And it's no longer something that somebody else gave you. When you get to a point where you own it, then you've got it. And I'm just a conveyor of good information. I don't try to be the last word on anything. But sharing good information and demonstrating good skills, that's a good place to start. Once I've heard someone describe using a good skill and I've seen them put it into practice, by watching them actually build one, then I can use that information and make it my own real easy. So the winter woods can be beautiful on days like today. It's winter, it's winter weather and there's snow all over the place. It's raining, it's snowing, it's shifting back and forth. But this is the time of year I love being out in the woods. The cold really doesn't bother me so much. And as I just said, I was born in Michigan, spent most of my life in the Upper Peninsula, hanging around on the shores of the Great Lakes. So that was a good experience for me as a kid to grow up that way, And I spent plenty of time in a place called Charles Howell in central Michigan, which is near a city named Gaylord, Grayling, which of course is where the Fred Bear Bow Museum is. If you've never been there, I suggest going to Grayling, Michigan and checking out the Fred Bear Bow Museum. And you have to go there and see that. I recommend it myself. But that's where I grew up at. That's where I got the Paul Bunyan kind of chip on my shoulder as far as being able to live in the woods and all that, and that's where I got it from, is my early experiences growing up in central and northern Michigan. And since then, I've traveled all over the United States. I've been to the desert Southwest, been to California, been to Washington State, that is, Oregon. I've actually been to Eugene, Oregon, believe it or not. So went to Eugene, believe it or not. I certainly did. Yeah, that's what I said. Went to Eugene, Oregon. Yeah, I know. But hey, I've traveled around, all over the place, and right now, I've traveled all out in the West and Central states, Southern states. I've been to Texas, I've been to Louisiana, I've been to Florida, been all over Georgia, lived in the Carolinas for a long time. Now I'm in New England, been all over Vermont and New Hampshire. So yeah, I've been around, folks. And I've picked up skills and tips and techniques every step along the way. From dozens or maybe hundreds of people even. And I've shared something with every one of them, So that's why I'm so proud of all the skills that I present and demonstrate and all that stuff, is just because of the great people that I got those skills from and the travels that I had to go through to get them. You know, it's worthy to share that knowledge. And I'm certain the folks that, you know, taught me those things would. So I'm sure the folks that taught me those things would be extremely happy to know that, you know, I shared the knowledge that they gave me with, you know, freely with everyone else. And so that's how I do it. You know, that's kind of the wilderness way. You know, help someone that needs help. Take help from those that can give it. And that's the wilderness way. You know, and that rule works for anyone. It don't matter who you are or what your status is. So yeah, that's a wonderful way to share knowledge and stuff like that, as you go on a nice hike out in the woods, where, you know, if you're explaining something, you can actually stop and show someone, you know, what you're talking about. Yeah. And that's how I like to do it. So even on cold, frozen, kind of snowy days like what we've been having here lately, those are just great days for me to get out and go out. Skill mongering and sharing techniques with other people. Like today's a cloudy, kind of blustery day. It's been snowing on and off, and freezing rain on and off, so there's snow on the ground. Yeah, it's just been one of them kind of days, one of them weeks. So one main thing that most people should know about, just, you know, going off-road, going off-trail, and blazing out through the woods, is during the wintertime, if you look at these pine trees, see how they have snow just laying all over them? Well, if you just strike off through there and walk through those pine trees, all that snow that you see will come off of the tree and end up on you. And then you end up getting covered with snow, you end up getting wet. And yeah, you take heavy chances of coming down with hypothermia. So, and it's the same thing when it's raining too. You know, if it's rainy weather, you're walking through pine trees like this or thick brush like this, any water that's on the tree is going to come off on you when you walk through. So you have to bear that in mind, you know, when you are just, you know, like traipsing off down through the woods. I like to, you know, if it's really bad weather, in rainy weather, snowy weather, I prefer to stay on trails, because you don't have the snow and water transfer going on as bad. But, you know, on a nice day, if it's just cloudy or sunny, or, you know, everything's dry, there's snow not laying on top of the trees, then I don't mind just cutting off through, you know, heavy brush and trail blazing and stuff like that. So even with, you know, just, you know, walking through the woods, I try to use good common sense when I'm planning how I'm going to move around. And if it's a survival situation and you're in really dense, thick woods and you have no choice but to walk through it, then by all means, you know, you're going to walk through it and you're going to get all wet, you're going to get covered with snow or whatever. But, you know, planning ahead, planning before time, planning afterwards, you know, maybe that could be avoided, you know, if you know weather's coming. You know, if you leave your house in the morning and you know it's going to start raining while you're out on the trail, well, you know, maybe stay on a trail, you know, don't go blazing off through thick brush. You know? So yeah, that's really something to be concerned about, especially in the wintertime when hypothermia is a concern. Is the rainwater and snow and stuff transferring from the area around you onto you. And so you got to be careful that you don't get wet. So that just means plan. Plan your day and plan ahead.